Hi, it's Joe Mazumdar, editor and analyst at Exploration Insights at the pre-PDAC version of the Metals Investment Forum in Toronto. And with me right now is Mike Hudson, CEO of Hannan Metals. Hey, Mike. Hannan Metals, I've owned for a while in the Exploration Insights portfolio. It's a grassroots exploration company in the northeastern part of Peru. The focus initially was on the sediment-hosted copper potential in the region, and they've done a joint venture with a Japanese entity, JOGMEC, in one of it. But also, they're looking at the porphyry potential as well. With doing all of that, Hannan Metals has, given its market cap, has one of the largest top 10 land holdings position right now in Peru. And so, Mike, you just got back from Peru. And so how does that look right now in terms of where you are with the projects?
Well, absolutely fantastic that I can get back on the ground for the first time in 2.5 years.
And so, it was hard in Australia to actually get back to Australia.
Yeah, no, they let me out finally. So I can say that absolutely that's a very good summary of who and what we're doing. So I spent a number of days with our Japanese partners who are committing, will commit if they continue to go through to $35 million to earn 75% in the project. That's the sediment-hosted style, and that's not as traditional in Peru. Certainly, there's a whole belt over the Andes in the four land basins, as we call it, that exists from Argentina right up through into Colombia. Yeah. And passes through Ecuador, and there's some mines in Bolivia, or a mine in Bolivia. So not completely unknown, but we haven't really looked at it from an industry point of view. You know, we've got 100 kilometres of strike tied up in that basin called the Huallaga Basin. It's got all the right ingredients. It's what we call a reduced facies, so it's a pancake essentially, and we've mapped that over this 100 kilometres, and we've narrowed it down to a smaller area that we're going through. We've gone through drill permitting, and now we're waiting for those approvals to come through. So it's only about 4% of the area that we're permitting to drill. And we've done lots and lots of work there over the last year and come up with something that looks, you know, as an analogue in terms of the early stage discovery of the Kupferschiefer, which is the direct analogue of what we're looking for in Poland, where we're seeing a very thin but continuous pancake for that all over those big distances of about a metre of a few percent copper and an ounce silver at surface, where it's probably leached in that jungle environment. So very excited to be drilling that, and I know you and others are waiting at every point when you're going to drill it. So it's based on Peru timing being obviously slower than any of us hope, but it should be later this year or earlier next year is as much as I'm told. So that's the sediment hosted style.
And so, but now we've got this other project that was formerly called Previsto, that's now called Valiente, that's in the southeast part. That you're looking for porphyry coppers, and that was looked at one point maybe 20 years ago, and now you're sort of reopening that.
Yeah, 20 years ago. This is a few hundred kilometres south of the Huallaga Basin, where we're looking for the sediment-hosted copper. And as a means of background, I've been in Peru for the last 25 years, on and off, lived there, got good associations, know a lot about the geology and the ranking of what works and what doesn't in Peru. And so you've got to really have quite a deep understanding of any jurisdiction you work in. And that's allowed us to go in and with those contacts and that knowledge to areas that really haven't been looked at that much. And you referred to some of the work that was done 20 years ago. And that was in the days when the drug growing in these areas was rife. There was very little infrastructure, and it was really very difficult, helicopter into dangerous areas. Now that whole coca growing part of the world has been taken away from that part of Peru. There's been a huge immigration from the Andes down into that part of the world. It's led to a great new infrastructure. And what we've basically done is found a whole new belt of Miocene porphyries over about 120 kilometres, and hence why we've got some very big areas in the sediment hosted area, and we've taken about the same. So it's about 1,000 square kilometres in each project, so about just over 2,000 square kilometres. This is 100% in our own right, and we've we've basically rewriting the history of that part of the Andes. You know, these geologically that they're not meant to be there. The conventional wisdom would have, because they're too far away from the arc. But that's what happened with Bajo de Alumbrera, of course, that you'd know very well, having your time in Argentina. So we've absolutely demonstrated that we've got 7 intrusive centres. One we've done a lot of work on, called Balin, and that's looking really very nice. We've got 1 kilometre by 1.6 kilometre consistent soil anomaly over one of these porphyries, copper gold porphyries. We're now starting to see the porphyry development from the leach cap right through to a supergene enriched blanket that we see at the lower topographic levels, and it's really just begging for some drilling now, which we're just about to start that permitting.
So in terms of working capital, because everyone talks about non-cash flowing juniors right now at this moment, copper is probably a better commodity to be in than precious metals, potentially to raise capital. How are you for working capital to generate some of this, the catalyst, once you do get the drilling permit?
We've been very fortunate in Hannan. I've been in this junior business, and it's a continuous challenge just to continue to generate capital that you're just spending and not earning back, of course, in these companies. But we're lucky in Hannan that over the last, I think we haven't raised money for close to 2 years now, because we've got the Japanese in JOGMEC, who are a great partner in the sediment-hosted copper, fully funding that work. We're managing it. We own 100% of that project, but they're funding $2 million a year on that project. The Valiente copper gold project, porphyry project, is 100% in our own name. We're starting to ramp that up now. So we've got enough capital to get to the drill stage, but once we get to the drill stage, we'll have to raise more capital. So there's a couple of $1 million in the bank to do that.
Depending on the program you decide to do.
In terms of drilling.
In terms of drilling, would you dictate what you would? But so you would rather go to the market and raise the money to drill, as opposed to looking for a partnership to do that.
This is a subject that we could sit here for the next 20 minutes developing the pros and cons, and I'm sure some of your listeners there will say, just give me full exposure to a brand new porphyry copper gold system and belt, if you've got that. Whereas others will say, listen, I wanted to de-risk this and go and do a partnership like you've done in the north with JOGMEC. You don't come across many of these discoveries in life, and I've made a number of discoveries, but this looks very, very encouraging at this stage. So there's the job of the majors is to keep an eye on companies like ourselves, and certainly they're doing that with Hannan. And we've got some interesting decisions to make over the coming 6 months, I'd say, as to what happens there. But I think there's huge benefit in general for juniors to be fully exposed to a project, at least in that first drill, to that first drill stage.
Right. Okay. So looks like we've got a few things happening on the sediment hosted side, as well as the porphyry copper side. And then, permitting will take a while, but it looks like you'll have more surface geochem and geological updates from both projects over the next 6 months.
I think, if you look at who we're chasing here, we're looking to become, the next Sol Gold or Solaris or Filo. They're the style of deposits we're looking for. And if you look at the discovery history of those deposits, especially with Sol Gold, it was the channel sampling that gave the first indications pre-drilling, and that's really where we're going to next over the next couple of months. And
on the porphyry.
On the porphyry, and we've got a lot of that data already in the sediment-hosted copper system. Okay,
well, great. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, so that's Mike Hudson, CEO of Hannan Metals, grassroots copper explorers with a significant land package looking for sediment-hosted copper and porphyry coppers in the northeastern part of Peru. This is Joe Mazumdar, editor-analyst, Exploration Insights, speaking to you from the pre-PDAC edition of the Metals Investment Forum in Toronto. Thank you very much.